With shattered legs, a broken arm, and numerous cracked bones, the skeleton soldier lay on the floor, grappling with the realization that death was imminent. He had been given the duty of guarding the dungeon, but had failed in his mission to shield his beloved Lady Succubus, who had been killed by bandits. As he lay there, a bandit snapped his neck, severing his head and landing a mortal blow. Fury surged through him, knowing that the bandits had robbed him of his peaceful existence with Lady Succubus. With the last fragment of his strength, he bit a bandit's foot, leaving him bloodied. Enraged, the bandit violently stomped on the skeleton's head, crushing it into pieces and killing the soldier. Waking with a start, he found himself in a coffin on a rainy day. The last memory he had was of his head breaking and his own death. It all seemed strangely familiar. A notification appeared, notifying him that the transmission was complete, though he had no understanding of its meaning. Checking his stats, he was puzzled to discover that he had returned to level 1, despite remembering clearly that he had been level 36. Suddenly, Rubia called to him, informing him of his awakening. Memories flooded back, and he realized that Rubia was the girl he'd encountered 2 decades earlier. The realization dawned that he'd traveled back in time to the moment he'd first awakened 20 years prior. He remembered that bandits had soon attacked, resulting in Rubia's death and his serious injury. Quickly, he grabbed Rubia and hid behind a rock. Men soon arrived, not mere bandits but mercenaries specifically sent to kill Rubia. The inclement weather concealed them, causing the mercenaries to leave. But as they emerged and began to talk, an arrow struck Rubia's shoulder. It was a trap. The mercenaries had feigned departure. A mercenary seized Rubia, intending to assault her before killing her. Seizing the opportunity, the skeleton soldier attacked the mercenary with a rock, assuring Rubia of her safety. But the promise was fleeting, as the mercenary rose and smashed his hammer into the skeleton's head, cracking his skull and ending his life. He awoke once more in the coffin on that rainy day, to Rubia's voice calling him. He was back at the beginning, resurrected again by the necromancer Rubia on the same day and time, but with memories of his previous deaths. He even had a log recording his 2 prior deaths, allowing him to gain either 20 lickability points from necromancers or 40 resistance points to blunt weapons. Choosing the resistance, he prepared for the mercenaries' attack. Arming himself with Rubia's dagger, he lay in wait just as before. He sprang out, slaying the inattentive crossbow mercenary, only to be killed again by the hammer mercenary. His next revival was the same, but with additional experience points. He allocated them to agility for quicker reactions. This time, he targeted the hammer mercenary first, succeeding in killing him but dying from the crossbow mercenary's arrow. The 4th attempt brought further leveling up and more points to agility. He defeated both mercenaries, successfully saving Rubia after 3 attempts and 3 lives. For the first time, he had managed to preserve a life, having been through an intense cycle of death and resurrection, strategizing and adapting to finally achieve success. The skeleton soldier reconciles the events up to this point. Every death transports him back to his original casket, resetting his level to 1, but he retains his skills, and through the Death Memorial Hall, he gains a new skill each time. Uncertain if this ability has limits or if he has a fixed number of lives, he resolves to do his utmost to survive. He learns more about Rubia, the daughter of the Count of Arist, who was slain by a newly ascendant militaristic emperor. She sniffles at the memory, and the skeleton comforts her, reassuring that he will protect her. He recalls that the new emperor will soon wage a 9-year war against the Free States, followed by the awakening of 16 demons. Exiting the cave, they find themselves in snowy mountains. Rubia playfully throws a snowball at the skeleton, urging him to be less serious. They climb towards Ublem, a village on the other side. Rubia nearly falls, but is saved by the agile skeleton, leading her to comment that it's his second rescue. Reaching Ublem, Rubia tells the skeleton to wait outside while she acquires some armor for him. Days pass, and Rubia doesn't return. The skeleton begins to think she has abandoned him. A soldier emerges from the castle, discarding something, Rubia's bruised and dead body. The skeleton overhears men discussing her supposed suicide and their plans to sell her. He kills one of the men, threatening him for answers, learning that the innkeeper had handed Rubia to the guards to be sold to the Gentlemen's Society of Necrons. He steals the man's robe, infiltrates Ublem after dark, and confronts the innkeeper. After learning more about why Rubia was killed, he wounds the innkeeper, who is then strangled to death by a purple snake-like creature emerging from his neck for leaking information. The skeleton decides he needs to know more about the Gentleman's Society of Necron, responsible for these connections. He takes armor from the inn and vows to become stronger to save Rubia next time. Seeking monsters to defeat, he ventures into a dungeon known as the Charnel House of Spirits, suitable for lower levels. In the dungeon known as the Charnel House of Spirits, the skeleton soldier encounters another skeleton. He tells it he does not want to fight his own kind and turns to leave. Suddenly, a notification announces the arrival of the dungeon boss, a massive skeleton wielding a long mace. It brutally smashes the other skeleton to smithereens. Disgusted by the violence against its own kind, the skeleton soldier decides to fight. He deftly dispatches 2 of the boss's skeleton minions and then uses his agility and intelligence to break one leg of the boss. Though off balance, the boss connects with the skeleton soldier, sending him flying. Realizing he has underestimated the boss, the skeleton soldier moves quickly and climbs onto its head. With knowledge of the skeleton's weakness, he drives his sword into the boss's head, defeating it. Notifications reveal he has leveled up 5 times and gained a new quest, to swing his sword 10,000 times for a new sword skill. With no need for food or sleep, he begins to train in the dungeon. Outside the dungeon, 3 explorers, including a knight, a red-haired girl, and a girl with yellow hair named Lena, prepared to enter. The knight tries to impress the girls, promising protection and healing potions. Meanwhile, Lena secretly plans to betray the knight and steal his potions. Inside, the dungeon seems devoid of skeletons, but the party soon finds the remnants of the boss skeleton. Lena readies her dagger for betrayal, but is interrupted by the appearance of an armored figure, who turns out to be the skeleton soldier. Initially silent, he reveals he defeated the boss and tells him to leave. Lena, cunningly, convinces the knight to fight the armored stranger, planning to loot both afterward. Upon revealing he's a skeleton, the knight underestimates and taunts the skeleton soldier but is swiftly disarmed, his arms sliced off. The red-haired girl flees but is stabbed in the back by Lena. Lena introduces herself as a member of the TNT Guild, responsible for assassination, thievery, and intelligence. She pleads for her life and justifies killing the other girl to prevent her escape. Recognizing she's outmatched, Lena surrenders and the skeleton soldier decides to spare her. Lena isn't content with simply leaving and offers her services. Recalling her intelligence skills, the skeleton soldier asks her what she knows about the Gentleman's Society of Necrons. Her knowledge about this mysterious group is poised to become the next key point in the unfolding story. After defeating the knight and the red-haired girl, the skeleton soldier and Lena engage in a conversation regarding the information about the Gentleman's Society of Necrons. Lena agrees to share the information, but she demands to become the skeleton's companion in return. This condition irritates the skeleton, who puts his sword to her neck. However, Lena insists that this is high-level classified information that he couldn't otherwise obtain. Eventually, they agree to the condition, and a notification appears for a new quest called Lena's Story. The skeleton must help Lena become a branch manager within her guild, while being aware of her ability to betray others. Lena promises to aid him in training, but the skeleton picks her up in a chokehold, expressing his distrust as she had killed a human earlier. Lena convinces him that she is more akin to him than to humans, who only use her and don't care about her feelings. She then shares what she knows about the Gentleman's Society of Necrons, an underground organization involved in illegal activities, including drugs, killings, and trafficking. It is backed by powerful people, and Lena needs to rise within her guild to gain more information. The two form a pact. Lena will lure her assassination targets to the cave where the skeleton will kill them, aiding their respective goals. Together, they dispatch numerous targets, with the skeleton soldier leveling up. However, he notices a slowing in his rate of level increase and considers going to another dungeon. Lena brings his attention to the spoils, including books that increase his wisdom points. Among the items are books by the author Kevin Ashton, and Lena offers to bring more books from the village. The skeleton declines but expresses interest in knowing about nearby dungeons. Lena shares information about 4 dungeons within a week's walking distance: the Barren Catacombs, E rank, the Ruined Vault of the Spider, D rank, the Twisted Fog Zone, C rank, and the Sneaky Jungle, C rank. As Lena sleeps in his lap, the skeleton begins to feel drowsy despite his undead nature. A system notification reveals he has spent over 180 nights in the dungeon, increasing his familiarity to 20 points. His skeleton nature seems to surrender to the dungeon, and he falls into a trance, sleepwalking toward the center of the dungeon. In his dream, he finds himself back with Lady Succubus, who reassures him and asks about his dream. Meanwhile, Lena wakes up and searches for the skeleton but can't find him. She heads outside the dungeon and spots a unit of soldiers who have come to investigate the charnel House of Spirits. This once easy dungeon has resulted in the deaths of countless adventurers and civilians in the past 6 months, and the soldiers are determined to uncover the truth. The plot thickens as Lady Succubus, in the skeleton soldier's dream, comments on Lena's intelligence and asks whether he intends to let her die. In the real world, an intruder warning alerts the soldier, who vows to protect Lady Succubus. Simultaneously, Lena races back to the dungeon to alert the skeleton about an incoming enemy unit. Confused and entranced, the skeleton mistakes her for an enemy and attacks. The enemy unit quickly reaches them, launching arrows, and Lena realizes that the skeleton is under some enchantment. Desperately, she tries to wake him. In his trance, he's tormented by the specters of Rubia and Lady Succubus, who accuse him of weakness and failure to protect them. In the physical world, soldiers attack Lena, who fights back with a bomb, binds the skeleton with rope, and retreats further into the cave, where she has more explosives planted. Her plan starts to falter when she's intercepted by knights. The skeleton, meanwhile, drowns in a metaphorical sea of unconsciousness, content that he will see Rubia and Lady Succubus one last time. But Lena's pleading voice reaches him, and he wakes to find her wounded by arrows, shielding him. Together, they rise to face the knights, only to be confronted by a hidden stash of Lena's poison gas bombs. The skeleton carries Lena, cutting through enemies, and escapes the dungeon. Once outside, he sets her down to tend to her wounds, only to be ambushed by the leader of the knight unit, who severs his left arm with a single blow. The master soldier summons the local lord, berates him for misinformation regarding Lena's alleged necromancer powers, and orders him to take Lena to court. The skeleton, although severely wounded, rises again, sword in his right hand, recognizing the unparalleled strength of his opponent, but resolved not to flee. The remaining soldiers emerge from the cave, and the coercion skill is activated, limiting the skeleton's movements. The master, intrigued by the skeleton's resilience despite Lena's unconsciousness, decides to end her life, believing her to be the source of his strength. The skeleton, driven by the memory of past failures and an unbreakable will to protect, lunges at the master but is struck down. As he drifts out of consciousness, gratitude for the chance to meet Rubia again in the afterlife fills him, coupled with a renewed promise to save her next time. When the skeleton soldier comes to consciousness, he's overcome with frantic anxiety as he searches for Rubia. He finds himself in an unfamiliar place, and his heart sinks as he spots Lena asleep on his lap instead of finding Rubia. A system panel suddenly appears, informing him that he is now back to level 1. Still, his stats remain unchanged. An intriguing line on the panel catches his eye. Switching to a designated waypoint, he ponders this, realizing it's his new starting point. He's filled with mixed emotions. Relief at being alive again is overshadowed by disappointment at not meeting Rubia and a lost opportunity to save her life. Then the Death Memorial Hall screen flashes, informing him that this is his 5th life since transmission. The upgraded bonus from My Life for the Necromancer to Necromancer's Lover comes as a surprise, enhancing his connection with Lena through increased lickability points with necromancers. He wakes Lena gently, urgency in his voice as they must leave at once. He recalls the trance-like state he experienced last time around, driven by familiarity with the dungeon. He fears it might happen again. Plus, the soldier's arrival seems imminent. A quick discussion ensues on their next destination. Skeleton soldier proposes the barren catacombs, but Lena suggests the ruined vault of the spider. Her reason? Monsters from the catacombs vanish into thin air, possibly due to an operation by soldiers. This leads to a conversation about the master soldier the skeleton fought, identified by Lena as Mark Leandro von Basham, master of the Order of Blue Lion, one of the 4 greatest swordsmen in the kingdom. They agree to stop at the nearby town of Ublam for supplies, including antidotes and bombs to combat the spider's poison and webs. Lena also wants to clean herself. At Ublam, Lena poses as the skeleton's wife, cleverly smoothing their entry into the town. Once inside, a hostile atmosphere permeates the streets, suspicion glaring in every eye. They find an inn run by a bartender woman without the snake tattoo that the skeleton soldier recalls from his previous visit. After enjoying some rest and a peaceful bath, Lena wakes up refreshed. The skeleton stands guard all night, but observes no suspicious activity. The following morning, they head to a shop for supplies, only to be shockingly rebuffed. Firebombs, antidotes, empty bottles, and tar are all unavailable. Their frustration grows as the shopkeeper refuses to do business with them. Lena's anger is palpable, but the skeleton soldier's caution prevails, and he drags her away. A shadowy figure continues to stalk them, finally revealed as the blacksmith that the skeleton soldier had spotted earlier near the town gate. After capturing him, he guides them to his shop and begins to reveal the town's hidden truths. He explains the scarcity of the items they sought and the city's decline following the previous lord's mysterious death. The introduction of opium has brought widespread addiction, poverty, and desperation. The new lord's rule is marked by ruthlessness, and his guards terrorize the town. Lands and properties have been sold for a pittance for the addictive drug. Dissenters have been sent to the spider cave. The blacksmith's voice cracks as he mentions that his wife was among those sent. The blacksmith beseeched the skeleton soldier to seek vengeance on his behalf, revealing that the armor he had been wearing had been crafted by his own hands. The woman who purchased it from him had declared it a gift for someone special in her life. This revelation caused Skeleton Soldier to recall Rubia, and he reacted with a scream of shock. Seizing the blacksmith by the collar, he demanded an explanation for why the old man hadn't warned Rubia of the dangers that lurked nearby. The blacksmith tried to defend himself, insisting that his advanced age and frailty made it impossible for him to stand against such threats. Skeleton Soldier was about to lift the blacksmith by his shirt, but the old man quickly divulged vital information. The captain of the guards, along with his men, were on their way to the spider cave. With this knowledge, the blacksmith handed them the unquenchable fire of Grasmere, a potent weapon to use against their enemies. Meanwhile, soldiers were hastening chained prisoners, threatening them with the dreaded name of the captain. From a high perch on a tree, Lena and Skeleton gazed down at the procession until they reached a large cave within a mountain, the ruined vault of the spider larger than any previous dungeon they had encountered. Lena, holding a loaded weapon, offered it to Skeleton Soldier, her excitement palpable. In a flashback, she had eagerly questioned the blacksmith about the rare fire of Grasmere. With only a few baubles left in the blacksmith city of Rasmere, the blacksmith confirmed her statement, disclosing the city's secret. He had managed to make just one bottle of the magical fire. Teaching them to load it into a gun, he warned Skeleton to handle it with caution. The magical fire, if not enclosed within a container imbued with cold magic, would burn for decades. It was a powerful tool used in place of smelting to refine precious metals. He even provided a flame-resistant substance for protection against the heat of the flame. Though he had intended to use the fire for his life's grandest work, the old man confessed that seeing evildoers destroyed would be satisfying compensation. At that moment, Skeleton directed Lena to wield the weapon, urging her to use it sparingly. As they ventured into the cave, their footsteps echoed in an unsettling silence. They knew a large group had entered before them, but tracking footprints proved difficult. Inside, they were awestruck by the cave's immense size compared to the previous ones they had explored. Lena halted Skeleton to ask about his relationship with Rubia. Denying any connection beyond mutual benefit, Skeleton ended the conversation by confessing his failure to protect her. Skeleton Soldier then found a blocked path, and Lena handed him a pendant of significance, asking him to hold on to it temporarily. All the while, spiders were gathering above them, weaving webs. An object dropped on Skeleton's head, causing him to look up at a giant attacking spider. With a swing of his sword, he inflicted damage but knew he needed to sever its web. The beady-eyed creature fell, and Skeleton's sword pierced through its head, causing green goo to spill out. As he rested momentarily, the screeching of more spiders echoed behind him. Two giant growling spiders clung to the ceiling, spinning webs, and hanging Lena upside down. Skeleton's sword flung at them, sending them crashing to the ground and spilling green fluid everywhere. While battling the spiders, Skeleton saw Lena's grip slipping from the thread she dangled from. Furiously, he fought, cursing the spiders as one sprayed webbing around his legs, immobilizing him. Struggling, he cut the web, but a spider yanked his sword away. Another began shooting webs at him, and Skeleton wriggled in desperation, pulling free as the spiders scampered closer. One raised a leg to crush him, but suddenly flames erupted throughout the cave. Lena, having freed herself and ignited the spiders, impressed herself with the weapon's power. Skeleton, now understanding the firebomb's value, noticed the spiders retreating from the flames. Lena retrieved his sword and cut his web binding, freeing him. Once liberated, Skeleton set the remaining spiders ablaze, feeling his strength increase more rapidly. Lena joked about being his wife, and he acknowledged owing her for saving his life. However, Lena suddenly fell unconscious, poisoned by a green mark on her neck. Confused and attacked by the Spider Queen, Skeleton was inadvertently rescued by a group led by a young man with slick back hair and a snake tattoo, the captain of the guards. Skeleton managed to hide, unnoticed by the captain, and spotted the prisoners being rushed by the guards. Reminiscing about Rubia, Skeleton recalled how the captain had ordered her kidnap and sale as a slave to the Gentlemen's Society of Nikran. He remembered her smile as the captain laughed cruelly. The soldiers had the spiders wrap each prisoner in webs, killing them slowly. They debated the necessity of this method, but a new soldier was told to obey the captain's orders and keep silent. Thus, the macabre task continued, all under the watchful eyes of Skeleton Soldier, who was filled with both determination and sorrow. Skeleton Soldier moved stealthily, creeping up behind a new soldier and positioning his sword against the man's throat. Trembling with fear, the soldier calls out to his captain, who is taken aback to find himself at the mercy of Skeleton. As Skeleton demands an antidote, the captain inquires if he might let them live in return. Skeleton's reply is chilling. He'll kill the captain swiftly but spare his men. The captain, baffled, laughs at Skeleton's audacity, suspecting that he might be a lunatic. The discussion turns to Rubia, a young woman who went to Hublum to purchase armor and never returned, having been murdered on the captain's command. The armor now adorns Skeleton, who accuses the captain of the deed. The captain's response is a scornful laugh, dismissing the vengeance quest and belittling the memory of ordinary women. Furious, Skeleton swiftly ends the life of the guard he had been holding hostage. The captain, unfazed, asks Skeleton if he likes eggs and hurls the Spider Queen's eggs at him, leaving him to face her wrath. The captain smirks as Skeleton is attacked, his armor pierced by one of her spiked arms. Commenting on the humor of the situation, the captain explains that the Spider Queen was a chimera, created and abandoned by magicians, but fiercely protective of her offspring. She continues her relentless attack on Skeleton, ripping and slashing, while the captain orders his soldiers to leave, confident that they won't have to feed the spider that day. However, his confidence is shattered when the cave erupts in flames, and the Spider Queen's screeching fills the air. A look of genuine fear crosses the captain's face as Skeleton emerges from the flames, pouring water over his head and revealing his non-human nature. Skeleton, his face covered by armor, aims a gun that shoots flames at the captain and his soldiers. Amidst the chaos, the cave becomes a fiery inferno, and the captain finds himself cornered, begging for mercy. Skeleton shows none, and the captain meets a fiery end, burned alive in his desire for retribution for Rubia's death. With Lena unconscious and his bones beginning to melt, Skeleton Soldier notices his assimilation rate decreasing. Waking to find Lena asleep on his lap, he's confused about the moment of his death, as he was cautious with the fire-resistant potion. Back in Ublam, Lena attempts to convince a shopkeeper to sell her firebombs. When refused, Skeleton Soldier intervenes, leading them back to the blacksmith's shop. There, the blacksmith hands over the fire of Grasmere and a gun to use it, along with heat-resistant liquid. Testing the gun on the blacksmith himself, Skeleton Soldier accuses the old man of trying to kill them. The blacksmith retorts, identifying Skeleton as a non-human monster. Lena, in frustration, suggests killing the blacksmith, but they leave instead, taking a sword that the blacksmith had been forging for years. Once more at the ruined vault of the spider, Lena and Skeleton prepared to face the dangers within, wary of the fire's potency and the limitations of the heat-resistant powder. The adventure continues, fraught with peril and driven by revenge, as they move forward in a world filled with uncertainties and treacherous paths. Upon entering the cave, Skeleton Soldier swiftly knocks Lena unconscious, placing her in a safe corner. He sternly reminds himself that she died once because of him, but he won't let it happen again. Armed with his sword and vowing to make quick work of it, he begins to burn all the attacking spiders with the fire of Grasmere, confident that the weapon is sufficient but aware that caution is needed. Suddenly, the captain and a few soldiers approach him, seemingly fearful since he had slain the spiders alone. The captain deceptively offers to guide him out of the confusing dungeon, introducing his group as town guards. Slyly he asks Skeleton if he likes eggs, hiding a spider egg behind his back. Skeleton's response is swift and deadly. He slices through the captain's chest with his sword, causing the concealed eggs to shatter on the ground. Stunned, the captain demands to know his identity, but Skeleton coldly states that he only has a promise of painful death to keep. Fear spreads among the captain's group, but they follow orders to attack Skeleton, who meets them with a fiery onslaught. He stops after a moment, remembering not to overuse the weapon lest he melt like before. He resolves to keep his distance and burn the place down. Despite injuries, the captain lunges at Skeleton, destroying his flame gun and declaring Skeleton's error in destroying the eggs. He threatens Skeleton with the Spider Queen's wrath, holding her last egg hostage and ordering her to kill Skeleton. The ensuing battle is fierce. Skeleton struggles against the stronger, furious Spider Queen, barely fending off her attacks. Knocked to the ground, he trips on a rock and looks desperately for a solution, spying fire near his smashed weapon. Mocked by the captain, Skeleton infuses his sword with the flame of Grasmere, transforming it into a blazing weapon. He drives the Spider Queen away, cutting her legs and finally knocking her out, splashing green goo everywhere. The shocked captain sees an opportunity to strike Skeleton from behind, but is met with a slashing counterattack. Desperation takes over as he calls futilely for his dead guards and sizzling spiders to aid him. An attempt to extinguish the flames on his arm only spreads the fire. Stumbling back, burning and terrified, the captain reaches the edge of a cliff. Despite Skeleton's warnings, he slips and falls to a charred, fiery death. Skeleton watches the burning body, deeming it a pathetic end. With regret, he tosses the flaming sword down the cliff, considering it too dangerous to keep. Suddenly, the Spider Queen awakens, lunging at Skeleton. To his surprise, she simply retrieves her last egg, expressing happiness before collapsing dead. Skeleton realizes her actions were driven by maternal instinct to protect her eggs, a realization that comes to him as he prepares to return to Lena. The adventure continues, laden with lessons, risks, and the uncertainty of what lies ahead. Skeleton Soldier, having defeated the Web Slinger, is victorious in his latest stage. His warrior points have shot up by 400%, and he's managed to clear the dungeon with less than 10% of his health remaining. He's also rewarded with a new quest titled The Adventurer on the Edge of the Border and a new skill called Dash that boosts his speed by 300% for 5 minutes and can be used 3 times a day. Emerging from the cave into daylight, Skeleton Soldier is met by Lena's fury. She's angry and feels betrayed that he entered the cave without her, believing he doesn't trust her. He hands her a sack he was carrying, but she is adamant that it won't fix things. However, when she glimpses a sparkling gold coin inside, she changes her mind. Determined to prove herself, she vows to train harder so he won't leave her behind again. Unsure of their next destination, Lena suggests returning to her guild's regional office. She guides him to the branch office of her guild, and later they reach an orphanage. The children, including Rena's sister, greet them warmly, and Rena introduces No Name as the knight who assisted her. The headmaster of the orphanage, a young, well-dressed man, welcomes them and Rena, and he catch up. No Name is then introduced, and the headmaster, identifying himself as Lime, suggests that No Name remove his armor. No Name declines, and Lime reassures him that what's beneath the armor is not a concern. Suddenly, a child's scream interrupts their conversation, and Lime mentions unwelcome guests on the premises, promising to continue their talk later. In the courtyard, 2 armed men and a woman are attempting to forcibly take a child, accusing her of fleeing. They claim to run a nearby village's orphanage and say the child was chosen to be adopted by a court supporter. Lime intervenes, offering to discuss the matter if they release the child. He points out that she fled due to abuse, but the woman interrupts, proposing a deal to profit from the children. Lime refuses, calling them pigs for using children as puppets, and the woman orders an attack. Though No Name is worried, Rena assures him all is well, and the men need help, not them. The woman's grin turns to shock as her henchmen are engulfed by Lime, who reveals himself to be made of slime. He consumes the terrified woman as No Name, and a satisfied Rena watch. Lime then properly introduces himself as Slime, the TNT Guild's Eastern Branch office manager, and a fellow non-human. No Name, surprised to see an intelligent Slime, asks how Lime will handle the aftermath. Lime assures him it's no problem, much to No Name's discomfort and Rena's delight. Inside, Slime explains his interest in running an orphanage and offers to take a skeleton form, which No Name declines. Slime's excellent appraisal skills are revealed, and he offers to appraise anything for No Name, who gives him a ruby. As Slime examines the jewel, No Name realizes Rena's trust in him comes from growing up with Slime. The ruby's value and use are revealed, and No Name's assimilation rate drops, causing him to tremble. He dismisses Slime's concern and asks for a spare sword. Grateful for Rena's safety, Slime offers to repair No Name's armor and provide room for the night. That night, No Name contemplates a class change while looking at the ruby. Rena enters, and they discuss her sister and future plans. She gives No Name her precious golden pendant, found with her when abandoned at the orphanage, for the day he completes his quest. Sweetly she asks him to live with her, and they share a silent, meaningful stare. The following day, No Name inspects his newly repaired armor and admires his fresh sword, with Slime by his side. Rina enters the room, shyly averting her eyes. Later, Slime inquires about No Name's next destination and, sensing his uncertainty, suggests that he join the TNT Guild. He explains that Rina's trainee status limits her access to information within the guild, but No Name would enjoy full benefits as an official member under Slime's endorsement. Though Slime thinks highly of him, No Name declines, preferring not to be tied to a group, much to Slime's dismay. No Name plans to continue relying on Rina for information, causing her to blush. He then questions Slime about the requirements for Rina to become an official member. Slime explains that she can either fulfill guild requests or donate gold. No Name offers a bag of gold from the spider's vault, which Slime confirms is sufficient. A blue status window appears, updating No Name's progress in Rina's story, and notifying him that his assimilation rate has dropped to 88.56%. While Slime reads guild bylaws to Rina, No Name ponders the meaning of the assimilation rate. The conversation turns to Amber, a maritime port and city of engineers, which No Name recalls will soon be the starting point of a 9-year war initiated by Crown Prince Alton Clemens II. The city's anarcho-syndicalist nature will annoy the Crown, making it the Empire's first target. No Name subtly questions if Amber's position as a significant obstacle in a potential war would be considered a grave threat. Slime agrees but assures that preparations are in place, refusing to elaborate further. As Slime congratulates Rina on her promotion, No Name inquires about the requirements for her to become branch manager. Slime is amused but focuses on Rina's immediate promotion, explaining that difficult requests could expedite her next advancement. A blue option window appears, asking No Name to accept or decline a quest. In a packed arena, a host announces the Harris Tournament, introducing the first contestants, including No Name. The fight begins with the Dismantler lunging at No Name's head with a great hammer. Days earlier, Slime had explained that a household from Jane sought a mercenary to represent them in the tournament. They had earned their title through wealth, but lacked a trained knight. The event's sponsor, the Lord of Harris from the Ray family, pressured participation, so they sought to hire a mercenary. No Name would be paid for each win until the 8th round. Accepting the request, No Name and Rina hitch a wagon ride, and No Name contemplates the Lord of Harris, Rubia's uncle, pondering if he should kill him. Rina questions No Name about his relationship with Rubia and his perception of her. He dismisses any connection and struggles to describe her, admitting she was likely attractive. When Rina asks if he would have answered Rubia differently in the orphanage, No Name maintains that his response would be the same, citing a task he must complete, leaving Rina disappointed. Well, folks, if you've enjoyed this video and want to see a second part, don't hesitate to comment below and subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified in the future. Your support means a lot, and your comments will shape what comes next. Until the next video, take care.